Alrighty, so again, since I did episodes 1 through 4 of the Rings of Power, I figured I'd do 5 through 8. And realistically, I'm going to be talking the most about episodes 7 and 8 because here's something sadly that the show kind of falls into, which I felt like the first season kind of falls into, which is that it's 8 episode season, 6 episodes of build up, and finally payoff in episode 7 and 8. And I get that that's usually, the build up and the payoff at the end, but it would be nice to have a little bit more throughout the story because I felt like, honestly, episode 1 through 4, it was pretty interesting, especially episode 4, even though it kind of felt like it took you out of the mainline story, but it introduced a lot of cool stuff. But going into the ending half of the show, you really get propelled into, in my opinion, the best. So the best two storylines. So in season 1, my favorite storyline was Elrond and Durin. In this season, my favorite storyline is Sauron with Celebrimbor and Durin, in general, Durin's story, the dwarves. And so it's really great to see Durin's story and his dad getting the ring, one of the rings of power, and it corrupting him. And again, of course, things are different from the book. Here's what I don't get. Things are allowed to be different from the source material. I just don't understand why people get so pissed. Like, okay, in the book, it took X amount of ages for this storyline to happen. So what? In the TV show, again, the TV show is an adaptation of the work. It is not a direct copy of the work. And so it's just taking aspects. So in the story, in the show, when Celebrimbor and Sauron are making the rings, and what seems like probably 3, 4, 5 months, show-wise, I don't think that that's bad. Yes, in the movie, it was like 500 years, whatever. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, when I look at how the pacing goes in the show, I'm like, okay, it makes sense for the show. Now, there is one scene between episodes where they've already just forged the dwarf rings, and I was like, ooh, okay, that seems a little rushed. But there's so many people that get upset, like, oh, well, it's not like the book. And I'm like, of course, you can compare it all you want, but this is not the Silmarillion, the book translation. This is Rings of Power, an adaptation of, some of the books, stuff like that. And so, let me just get that out of the way. But, yes, Durin's storyline with his dad going crazy, I liked that aspect. Now, again, does it make sense then how the Rings of Power are kept in the Dwarflands? Not really, but it sounds like we're alluding to that in season 3. But I understood, like, of course, dwarves are kind of greedy and, whatever. And maybe if they kind of do a good job of hiding it, of course, it's slowly going to come out eventually. And so you get to see the relationship between Durin and his father, which was great. The relationship between Sauron, Anatar, and Celebrimbor, I liked a lot. The actor that plays Celebrimbor, great. The actor that plays Anatar, Sauron, great. I liked their back and forth, and it was so nice to finally see Sauron use his powers. Like, you actually get to see, like, the sorcery side. Illusions. I mean, he can manifest full-on reality-changing illusions to trick people and, like, change physical, reality. And so he can trick Celebrimbor into thinking everything's fine when Eregion is being destroyed by the Uruks. And putting Celebrimbor in a time loop, basically, until Celebrimbor finally notices. And just the way he speaks to him, where it's like, this guy really knows how to just get out of any situation because he's so old. He's thousands of years old. He's cunning, trickery, deception. Just, they do such a good job. I think my problem, just like with last season, is I don't dislike the Galadriel character. I just wish they would do a little bit more with her because I want her to get humbled a little bit more. And I'm not trying to say like, oh, well, she's, a Mary Sue, whatever. It's just the fact of like, she gives the rings, and Elrond's like, at least try to listen to my counsel. She's like, no. Gil-galad, rings of power. Wee. Fuck you, Elrond. Ooh, I'm the commander. But then even Gil-galad's like, yeah, actually, this is Elrond makes a good point. We should be cautious. You know what? He's actually in charge of leading, not you. And then she gets all pouty, like, Elrond, you don't care, man. It's like, where is this coming from? I guess the idea is maybe the ring is corrupting her, but like it's not corrupting her like it corrupts Durin the Third. And so I was like, what is your deal? Um, it kind of changes by the end when she's able to just like let go of the rings. You're like, okay, all right, cool. But the show is basically building up to the destruction of Eregion, and also potentially the destruction of Khazad-dûm. And I just I don't know, like Bronwyn is gone, and it's like they don't know what to do with Arondir, even though he had his whole storyline in the first season. So Arondir is basically just like not existent in season 2, and then he just kind of pops up to be there and then gone. And during the fight in Eregion, homie gets shanked, falls on the ground, and then the next episode he's just there, and there's no mention, like there's no stab wound, no nothing, and he's just there. I was like, are we not going to address that you got like shanked to death and fell on the ground? What? So it's just kind of weird. And of course, people say this all the time. They show Eregion, they show Numenor, and it's massive. But you never get a sense of that scale, sadly, because they only show like 20 actors at maximum at a time in a scene, or they'll show the same area. I'm like, you got to give me that grand scale view, man. You got to give me that Pelennor Fields view of Minas Tirith and the Uruk-hai and, Sauron's army attacking, and you really get that sense of scale. Like, oh, okay, so you had showed me a zoomed-in shot of a catapult, trebuchet, siege engine with an orc, and then you zoom out and show hundreds of those with hitting Minas Tirith. You go, oh, okay. So I just wish they would have done a little bit more of that in Rings of Power. CGI wise, everything looked pretty good in my opinion. There's one weird shot of Adar in episode 7, I believe, towards the end, where he's holding Elrond. The sun shines on his face, and there's this weird, creepy CGI, like horrendous masking. It looks really, really bad. I don't know what was going on there, but sure. But they grow the Elrond character more, show-wise. He's never really been in a big battle, so you get to kind of see him being in a huge battle. There's that moment where it kind of breaks the stereotype somewhat, where it ends on, him being like, the dwarves are coming, and they think the dwarves are coming when the sun rises, and they don't. And so he feels, he's like, the dwarves will come, the dwarves will come. And then they don't, and they almost get killed, and finally the dwarves do come to rescue them, only because Durin the Fourth basically is now king of Khazad-dûm, because, spoilers, the Balrog is awoken by King Durin the Third, who opens a tiny hole, and then the Balrog wakes up and fucking kills him, and then collapses the entrance, and then they don't mention the Balrog again. So I'm thinking like, well, he's awake. Are you telling me he can't get through 10 foot of wall? Like, homie's awake. He should be destroying Khazad-dûm. So I don't know if that's maybe like a big plot line for the next season, but I just found it kind of interesting that they end the episode and they're like doing a funeral for King Durin the Third and all that, and then there's like no tents of the Balrog. They're just setting up like, oh, your brother wants to take over Khazad-dûm, and the other dwarf lords want their rings. And I was like, huh, no mention of the Balrog. Okay, but story wise, it's paced good enough. Sadly, more towards the end, and I guess I'll mention it. The stupid stranger storyline. Guess what? Thank you, Grand Elf. Looks at the fucking camera. Grand Elf. Gee, I wonder who this wizard is. And he's Gandalf. Surprise. So, I don't mind that it's Gandalf. I'm just annoyed that we had to get teased through season 1 and all of season 2 that he's Gandalf. Why do these stupid ass teases when we know it's Gandalf? Stop playing with it. And they just did this goodbye scene because he separates with the hobbits because they're like, we need to be with our people. They're going to head towards the Shire. So you're like, okay. And then as they're saying goodbye to him, they think he's an elf. So they go, goodbye, Grand Elf. And I couldn't roll my eyes any further, which is unfortunate because the episode was just hitting every mark until that cringe moment. And then he goes back with Tom Bombadil, realizes because the Dark Wizard shows up and is like, my old friend, you told me to come here. Like, if you come with me, I'll tell you more about your name, your powers, all that. And Gandalf's like, how about no? So the Dark Wizard's like, well, to teach you a lesson, I'm going to destroy this whole Hobbit village and kill everybody. Which he kills quite a bit. But then Gandalf kind of uses his powers, realizes that the constellation in his dream is here, and that the branch that becomes the staff he's looking for is there, picks it up, goes back to Tom Bombadil, they start singing, he realizes he's Gandalf, he goes, they're going to call me Gandalf, and you're like, okay, alright, pull that out of nowhere, I guess, kind of, but, so we finally get the definitive answer. He is Gandalf. So where does it go from here? I honestly don't know. Will he leave Rune, and now join men or the elves? Because he gets his ring eventually from Círdan the Shipwright. So who knows? But I'm just so sick and tired of the stupid Hobbit Stranger storyline. It's just all filler. It does nothing. And we don't need it. It's like, stop. Just stop. I pray that with Gandalf separating from the two hobbits, that they're just gone for now. Maybe we'll see them in a season 5 when it's like the Proto Shire. But I'm like, just focus on Gandalf now. Alright, we know he's Gandalf. We don't know who the Dark Wizard is. Maybe he's a blue wizard. I pray to God he's not Saruman, because that wouldn't make any damn sense. I suppose in a show-wise, maybe you could make it work. I don't know, but it's like, just please, for the love of God, don't do it where season 3 is a Gandalf storyline and then the two Hobbit storyline, because I don't think I can take that anymore. I might just skip that because a lot of time is wasted on them and it amounts to nothing. There's also those cool guys in the mask. Apparently they're nobody because they get killed. All right. So again, I like the show overall. I love this season a lot more than season 1, but I do have my complaints, and I think it's fair to have criticism. I'm not going to sit here and just say, like, because I'm a Middle-earth fan, like, it was just amazing. But I'm also not going to sit here and, like the other side, the grifters, where they're like, this show is woke, woke. Everything's woke because diversity. It's like, they're in the middle. I have my criticism of the dialogue and some of the shots and CGI, but I can also praise it too. The Numenor storyline is overall pretty good. Again, because we don't get that sense of scale, it's kind of crazy when you're like, I guess everyone is just ready for mutiny and killing other townspeople because New King said, even though there's probably like millions of people, but you never really get to see that. And so, they could have even done like a pan of the city or something, see people being killed or drag off somewhere. Just give me a little bit more of the world building and the scale. Definitely cool to see Muriel get pulled by that, I don't know, sea shark octopus and kind of go more into like the faith and beliefs of stuff where it feels like more believable. I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm hoping, because it's kind of, the start of the fall of Numenor, I'm hoping season 3 is going to focus on Sauron getting to the point where he makes the One Ring, the fall of Numenor, or I'm sorry, I guess he wouldn't be making the One Ring yet. Sauron going to Numenor to cause the fall of Numenor. Elendil going to Middle-earth, getting back with his son Anarion, and finding Isildur, building up, I can't remember, their, like, kingdom, whatever. And the elves building up Rivendell, the dwarves dealing with other dwarves, army, and maybe some tension between elves and dwarves. I get this hope that season 3 is going to really build up to some really intense moments. And, that's just my predictions. But Fall of Numenor would be great to see. I could honestly see that being the focus, and that would be amazing. Um, Seeing Sauron corrupt men now instead of elves, and seeing the dwarves kind of do like a little civil war, but then also start hating on the elves, and then causing problems there. And Adar being dead, I don't know what they're going to do with the Uruk storyline now that they're kind of a part of Sauron. So, a lot, I'm just jumping through, but overall, I do like this season a lot better than season 1. I wish and I hope that come season 3, they focus maybe on just like 2 main storylines and 1 like secondary or third storyline. There's there's just too much happening where they are trying to like oh, let's cut back to this storyline. Isildur and whatever the fuck, Like no. Like please cut those storylines out and just focus on the main 2, like the Sauron story and the Numenor story. Like come on, just work with me here on that. So I guess that's going to be it, honestly, for this video. I guess here in 2 years, I'll be talking about Season 3, which sucks that we have to wait so long, but it is what it is. So until next time, that is going to be it. I'm out.